Hello, my name is Mordred Viking, and I'd like to welcome you to this stream of Hearts of Iron 4, where we are playing as the Mexican Socialist Republic, led, of course, by Cardenas, because he is actually pretty awesome. So we are currently lining up our forces, as you may notice, towards the north, because we are about to finish the nationalization of the oil fields. And both Britain and America are probably going to be fairly grumpy with it. Particularly because of what I intend to do afterwards, which is basically oppose Yankee imperialism. We're going to go the communist route here. So, yes, bad words may well be exchanged fairly soon. So, let's unpause and see what happens. Why do so many people in the starting screen thing have arrows in their chest? It's because they're Mettenheim, and Mettenheim are hardcore. Alright, so we've nationalized the oil fields, which will come up with an event, I believe. We could get the oil revenue reinvestment. License purchase cost, license production speed. 2 building slots for 70 days. No, I think I'm going... Well, actually, do we have any reason to oppose Yankee nationalism? We don't. The other thing that we can do is go to a war economy, which we will be doing shortly, because we are well above the war support required for that. I just want to see what this leads to. Change in popularity for communism. Soviet Union bonus modifier. Russo-Mexican diplomacy. Mexican entry into the Comintern. Okay, so that would have me formally joining Comintern, which could well be useful if America declares war. And I kind of like the idea of the USSR and the USA being at war. I think that would be an interesting one, because that way the Soviets would technically be up against the Allies when World War II kicks off. Has World War II kicked off? I think World War II's kicked off. World War II's kicked off. I couldn't remember. I was like, what's going on? I'm not sure. So yeah, let's do this. We're going to do the oppose Yankee imperialism. Although 2 civilian factories would also be really, really nice. I mean, both of those are 35 days. They're going to be pretty quick. Let's do this one first. As we now benefit more from the selling of oil, our budget has quickly increased, and we must plan on a useful way to use these new funds. In order to benefit from it in the long run, a reinvestment of those revenues into economic stimulation seems to be the most obvious choice. And if it says, hey, you have to do a thing in the next 10 days, then we'll just cancel this. Thanks to the ability to actually cancel focuses now. Yay. What happened in the last stream? We created the Mexican Socialist Republic. So we went down the national bank route, we rebuilt the country, we were going to go democratic, we had an election very democratically, and the people voted for democracy. And then I realized, actually, all the things that I was saying about democracy in this were untrue. It's actually the socialists. People were voting for the Democrats and the understanding that the Democrats would have the biggest industrial impact, when actually it was Cardenist socialists. What I didn't realize is there are basically 2 parties of socialism within Mexico. You have Cardenas socialism and you have Trotskyite socialism. One is pro-Russia, the other is anti-Russia. And the pro-Russia route had a lot of industry. So then we held a people's vote, where they were allowed to vote again, because that's democracy. And we chose Cardenas socialism this time, and that's what we've been doing since. And then just stabilizing the country. We managed to avoid the Civil War. We've built up our industry a fair amount. It's still mostly civilian, but considering we started with like 2 civilian factories, we're now up to 14, which means we can build up the other stuff pretty quickly. And that's where we are now. And we're starting to do a little bit of saber rattling now that we've kind of solidified. The other thing that we did is we sent a lot of guns to Republican Spain. And Republican Spain, as you can see, actually won the Spanish Civil War, which has got to be the first time I've ever seen that happen in vanilla Hearts of Iron. So I'm pretty happy about that, because it means we've got communists here. I think France has gone pretty... Oh, nope, they've gone communist. We've got the Soviet Union, who's communist. I'm communist. So yeah, lots of communism. Am I going to go pro-Russia? Yes, we are. How has Mexico been doing? I really like the focus tree, actually. So one of the things that the Mexican focus tree has done that's really interesting is there's a lot of crossover between the focus tree and the decisions, which you have here. So, for example, you have the power of the church, which can increase or decrease for various bonuses or penalties. You have the Cadillo problems, where you have to eventually arrest him or support him, and over time that's constantly ticking up like a tension meter, and if that tension meter ever, I think, hits like maximum, then the civil war kicks off. So you're constantly trying to placate him while angling to arrest the guy. It's an interesting system. I quite like that. The other thing which this focus tree does really well is the different leaders. Like, there are a lot of different people that can take over Mexico, and they all have various bonuses and schemes and stuff going on, which is why we eventually chose Cardenas, because we could see that Cardenas is the pro-industry guy with the infrastructure and the civilian factory construction speed, while somebody like Trotsky, which was over here, nope, not there, it's here. This would have brought Trotsky in, though I don't remember exactly how. Or other people. And then you have like the democratic Cardenas on this side, where he's more about stability and trade rather than the communist-y stuff. I just like it. It's a cool system. So yeah, it's interesting, and I really hope that, say, Kaiserreich does something with this kind of crossover between the decisions and the focuses. I like it. It's good. Boost communism in France. I honestly don't think we need to. It was already well over 50%. So what was I doing? I was doing a thing, but I don't remember what that thing was. Are you guys still training? You guys are not training anymore. Let's add you to blue line. And our army is also actually pretty strong. I'm happy with this template. We do need to get field hospitals and things in there, but our manpower is pretty strong. It's actually going up fairly rapidly, and we should be able to use it pretty strongly, because we're still on volunteer only with 400,000 men in the army and a fairly large standing force. War economy, that's what we were going to do. Boop. So we can start building stuff even more fast. Yay! And there we go. We have now got 15 factories on the front line building stuff. Is France fighting against Germany? They are. American embargo. In response to our nationalization of their oil concessions, Franklin Delano Roosevelt has decided to accept the demands of the oil companies and has placed an embargo on our country. The United States will no longer buy or sell resources with us. We should consider either compensating the oil firms or abandoning the international status quo and seeking our fortunes with the enemies of liberal capitalism. The Mexican people will not stand for this. In response to our nationalization of their oil concessions, Neville Chamberlain has decided to accept the demands of the oil companies and has placed an embargo. The Mexican people will not stand for this either. So the Allies are definitely taking a rather dim view towards us right now. Why do I always favour the smaller templates? I don't. It's just early game. It's difficult to get the production going to get the bigger templates. Like, later on, I probably will switch to a 40 combat width, but early on, I just don't have the industry to do that. And also, we have a rather large front line that we need to cover with the USA. And that is what we are doing. Although I am really tempted to not bother with Baja and just protect up to here. Because that would save another 2 units. You know what? I'm going to do that. Sorry, Baja, California. You're just not important enough. Sorry, Tijuana. And oil reserves are now building up, which is great because we've actually taken control of all of the oil supplies throughout the country. And with the infrastructure work that I've been doing, those are going to be worth quite a lot. Now, war economy means that we can actually start building military factories. And I think I want to queue a couple of those up because we're going to need them. In fact, let's get those done first. And then we'll switch back to the civilians on those. Right, and then is France fighting Germany? So yes. Molotov-Ribbentrop never happened. The Germans and the Soviets are actually pretty hostile towards one another. The Germans took out Poland. Poland was allied to Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania and had a guarantee from Romania. Romania joined the Axis, which cancelled the guarantee. Germany then declared war on Poland, and fighting broke out. Poland was actually able to hold for a surprising amount of time and keep the Germans out. Meanwhile, France and Britain allied did not support Poland. There was no guarantee of Poland. But then when Germany declared war on the Netherlands and on Belgium, that's when the Allies got involved, and that's where the fighting here is kind of sparked off. It's already 1940. France is still alive, and remember, the longer that France stays alive, the better. Austria, Hungary, and Italy are allied with each other. Anschluss never occurred, which means that Italy and Germany are not in the same group, and Hungary has been super belligerent towards Romania, which is in the Axis. So I am certainly seeing a fascist versus communist versus allied war. It's basically going to be 4 factions, I reckon. Now, with the Poles already being out, they would have been the 5th. So, yeah, interesting times. Interesting times. Meanwhile, how are my supplies looking? Not amazing. We are not producing aircraft yet. I think we probably ought to. No. What I was going to do was I was going to start adding artillery. Hang on, which I haven't chosen yet between dispersed and integrated. We do have a lot of artillery line units, so we'll probably go dispersed support. Then what I was thinking is in our infantry templates, rather than having support artillery, we would introduce like support AT, support AA, field hospitals, engineers and recon. Or we could remove one of these artillery and then bring in an AA and an AT, because those just cost 1 point, right? Oops. Combat width is 1 for anti-air. Because we are going to need something which is anti-air. So part of the problem that is facing us are our resources. We have no aluminium. None. 0. We can produce rubber if we need to. However, if we're not in the Allies, getting big supplies of rubber is going to be difficult, which means that motorized and aircraft can be difficult. Aircraft especially are going to be very hard for us to produce. I think that mechanized will be okay, because I think those only cost steel. Let me just double check that. No, mechanized do require rubber. So we're going to need steel and rubber for our vehicles. We have the oil to support them. We're actually a fairly oil-rich nation, so we're going to have fuel. Any aircraft carriers? Mexico doesn't need them. No, and we have like 2 shipyards, so there aren't going to be aircraft carriers. Is this ahistorical with random AI? This is ahistorical default. So weird things will happen, but they shouldn't happen too frequently, unlike in the random game where anything goes. Like, there are still, like, weighted uses of the different focuses. Am I close to joining Comintern? I am 130 days-ish away. Why not produce your own rubber? That is something we can do. That's why I'm saying rubber isn't as big an issue as the lack of aluminium. I mean, we could buy aluminium from Russia. The problem is America has a huge navy and would just intercept it all. The Soviets do have a fair amount available. So that is why I'm saying I just don't see aircraft being feasible. Which means we're going to have to invest in AA, which is why we're currently doing AA. So we really ought to start producing anti-air and then adding those as a support company. You know what, I'm going to reduce the amount of artillery we're producing, and we're going to do AA instead. As a matter of some importance. Because otherwise the American Air Force is just going to obliterate us. The other thing that we may want to start doing is putting up some field defenses. Although, the further that the Americans push us, the worse the terrain gets for them. Until they get down to, like, here, where it gets a bit easier again, but, like, all of this is mountain. Yeah, it's pretty nasty. Those bits are desert. Unfortunately, our infrastructure is going to be excellent because it's me. Huzzah! Cletus, thank you very much for the subscription. Welcome to the Maudlings. Just kill America and take their aluminium. It's not impossible, it would just be difficult. Italy and Germany have expressed many conflicting interests, particularly in Austria and the Balkans. This has not, however, prevented the country's foreign policies growing ever friendlier towards each other, and negotiations are underway for a pact that will protect common interests. See, I don't know if that pact is going to happen, because Italy's already in a faction. And they were able to pull Romania away, because Romania wasn't actually in the faction with Poland, it was just guarantees. And yeah, Japan has already obliterated China. Like, China is fully reorganized. They've been picking off the warlords one at a time. They're actually playing this very, very well. And Guangxi, I think, is the last of China left. So after this, Japan may well go after the Philippines or Indonesia. Meanwhile, the German invasion of France has begun. The French actually seem to be holding relatively well. Right, there's the AA upgrade. Let's get AA2. And then we'll also need to upgrade the artillery. Rivers are the best to hold at, build forts. That is true. We do have a big frickin' river down there. This bit's going to be more difficult, but this bit is where all the mountains are. Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Oh, but this is all plains. No defensive modifiers there at all. The river does go all the way up to Juarez, which would protect all of this. The problem is I need to get these factories up and running. I mean, part of the problem with Mexico is you start off with, I think, 3 factories total at the start of the game. Also, hey viewer. And hello everyone else. How are you all doing on this fine evening? Right, so we have another slot that we can build. Why am I getting Steam notifications? I'm sure I turned that off years ago. Let's remember to take a look at that later. Military factories. I want to... At least they didn't appear on your screen, I don't think. More AA, so I can guarantee getting those in. Ultimately, I would like to get some motorized going so that we can get field hospitals. Support equipment's going to be a pain. I think we might need to do this without support equipment. At least until we can secure some aluminium. Is there aluminium, like, in the south? Chromium, 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 oil, 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 aluminium. Quite a lot. Did the Netherlands annex and... Oh, yeah! The Netherlands and Belgium joined Poland. They did not join the Allies. So when Poland capitulated, it took Belgium and the Netherlands out with them. Which means these are fully annexed. Germany doesn't need to worry about resistance. Same in Poland. There is no resistance. See? 0. 0. So doing that did buy France a little bit of extra time, but ultimately I don't know if that's going to matter. However, the Dutch East Indies did join the Allies after the Netherlands fell. Which I think means that the Netherlands can now no longer take them over. They're just going to have a generic focus tree. And the Netherlands doesn't exist. There's no exile governments. Because they've already capitulated, formally. Nationalize the drug market. 3 factories, mobilize the cartels. Right, I still need to make use of this factory. Let's do that before I actually forget. Oh, jeez, this is difficult, not having a source of aluminium. Thankfully, AA is just steel. And we do have a bit of steel. I think tungsten's going to be our main thing. So maybe some more artillery? We're just going to have a lot of firepower. What's the division organization like? 49, so organization's not atrocious. And we are going to want support AA. So if we did that, it would cost us a fair amount. I'd need to get rid of another unit, which would reduce our organization even further. Oh, hold on, no it wouldn't. Support AA doesn't do that. I'm an idiot. I'm thinking if it was an extra division. It's not. I mean, the other thing we could do is 2 AA and no infantry. And then we could just do without support divisions. Or we could have the support divisions just to make them even stronger. We do have... Organization drops to 35, though. I mean, our air attack is going to be phenomenal. We do a ton of damage. Especially with the AA, it adds a lot of hard attack, which is going to be great anti-tank. Oh, crikey, we'd need a lot of AA for that. Yeah, so let's remove those for the time being. If we had a template that looked like this... We do get anti-air, we do get anti-tank. We get a lot of piercing. So we would be effective against light and medium tanks probably. Heavy tanks would still cause us problems. Support equipment is non-negotiable. It's entirely negotiable when you have no source of aluminium. There will literally be no production of the stuff. And I do not have the Navy to defeat the US Navy to stop them blockading me. Which also means I should probably have a reserve to deal with marine attacks. Oh, that's a point. Okay, we're going to start training 6 divisions just to put them on the ports and have a reserve. They're very light. They're definitely not going to be frontline fighters. And they shouldn't take very long to produce. Switzerland! That's something you don't see every day. And the Germans are already on the outskirts of Paris. How's France looking right now? Actually, pretty good. Because it's just the northern stuff that's falling. Well, I guess they haven't taken this bit yet. Once they take that area, that's a lot of victory points right here. Paris is worth 50. Okay, crikey. I didn't realize Paris was quite that valuable. But opening up another front down here, across a river into mountains, I'm not convinced that's a great move there. Germany. I think the Swiss will be able to hold even if France doesn't. They are attacking into Paris right now. Right, we do want the Mendoza C-34s. Let's get those being developed. We are doing the doctrine still, right? Yes, we are. Although the doctrines are a slow process. Must bear that in mind. I think I'd like to get in total about 10 units done. So I think I'm going to do that. Just out of interest. If we did, theoretically, create a garrison force, and we had you just defending the victory points and the ports. In fact, just the ports. Not that side. How many men would that require? 7. And victory points? 25. That's a bit of a difference there. Crikey. Alright, so we would need 7 to hold all the ports. And I have not upgraded my ports at all. Those are going to be a very poor source of supply. All their supply is going to have to come in from the north. Okay. Oops. And we have another factory. What do we want to produce? I think we want to get up to scratch with the Toad AA. And then after that, we're going to go for more of these. Oil revenue reinvestment is done, so we've gained the extra civilian factories. Capital reserves, don't really care about. We are now going to oppose Yankee imperialism. What was the engineering school again? Electronics research. Oh, that's the manufacturer cost reduction. So this is another really interesting thing that the Mexican tree does. It reduces the cost of conscription laws, economy laws, and design companies using different design companies. So for example, right now we have the Banco de Mexico, which reduces the economy law cost by 25%, which is why this cost me 112 points rather than the usual 150. And you can replace the Banco de Mexico with the electronics concern, which reduces the designer cost, and you will notice I don't have any of those right now, and this only costs 25 points to bring in. Like, it's really cheap. But that does take a full 70 days, so I think we're going to try and join the Comintern, just in case America does try anything, and we'll go from there. Having rightfully reclaimed the natural resources of our country, the foreigners are now clamouring for compensation, but the concessions were essentially stolen from the Mexican people in their time of weakness under the dictator Diaz. Why should we pay a thief for returning stolen property? Why indeed? And while we celebrate this opposition to Yankee imperialism and capitalism in all of its cruelest forms, we're going to have some tea. France will fall before the end of summer. Well, to be fair to France, they have held longer than France usually does in my games. And that's saying something, because usually they fall in, like, late 39. I know it's only early 40, but still. Alright, Paris is gone. And France is halfway towards capitulation. I think that France has got a lot more war support than they usually have. Because, don't know, they've retaken from Paris. Because usually, once Paris falls, the country falls. There's the fall of Paris. While fighting still rages elsewhere in France, reports have come in of German troops entering Paris. The capital was declared an open city by the French forces moments before their last units retreated. Halfway. France is going to fight on for a while. Does AI France ever hold off the Germans? I've not seen them do it, and if we were going to see them do it, I suspect it would be this game. Because Maginot still holds. Denmark is pulling troops away from this front. And Switzerland still holds. Switzerland hasn't lost a single province. Oh, that's Poland now. Phalangist Poland. It seems to have shrunk a little bit. To be fair, France has no pressing need to guard the Alps with the Italians going anti-German. This is true. And the Italians are still anti-German, although they are doing more pro-German stuff. But they are still not in the same faction. And Hungary and Romania are still at loggerheads. Claim overlordship over Slovakia. See, that is pretty belligerent. And Slovakia is in the Axis.